Good morning or afternoon or evening, everyone. My name is Jeremy Walsh, and I'm the Director of Support, Training, and Documentation for BNI Connect. I'd like to welcome everybody to the webinar today. Today's webinar is part 5 in our 5-part series introducing BNI Connect to new members or to veteran members that are just using BNI Connect for the first time. The first part of our series last week, we talked about how to fill out your profile and how to get started in BNI Connect. Then we moved into how to use the online referral system in BNI Connect to track your referrals and really to get more information about your membership going forward by tracking that information. The third step, we talked about really the social media side, the networking side of BNI Connect and all of the different ways we can interact with other members around the world. The fourth part of our series was just yesterday, and we took a deeper dive into BNI Connect. We looked at some of the tools and the reports that are available to members when you go beyond the home screen in BNI Connect. And today what we're going to talk about is visitors, and we're going to talk about the visitor process in BNI Connect. So we did touch upon this just a little bit yesterday, but we're going to go much deeper today. We're going to talk about how we can invite visitors, and then we're going to talk about the process of registering visitors and also how this might be helpful to your chapter as you might be trying to grow your chapter. Before we get started, as usual, just a couple of housekeeping tips. The first of which, this is a live webinar, so please do ask questions. If you have any questions at all during the presentation, please do just type those questions in. I'll see them pop up on my screen and I'll be able to answer those questions as we go along. Or if it's something completely unrelated, I will be happy to answer that question at the end. This process takes about 30 minutes to go through the visitor process. That being said, I am happy to stay on the call until every single question is answered. We are recording this session so that you can review it later, or you can share it with other people that you feel might benefit from this information. You'll be able to find the recording both on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/BNI Connect Global, as well as on our support site. You can get there by clicking the question mark in BNI Connect or going to support.bniconnect.com. So let's talk about visitors in BNI and in BNI Connect. It's one of the driving forces to growing our chapters, and we all want to grow our chapters and grow our networks. How can BNI help with that process? And really, there are 3 different phases, if you will, or 3 different areas that BNI Connect can help with that. The first of which is inviting visitors. And BNI Connect has a tool in it that allows you to invite a visitor to an upcoming meeting. The second step, which still happens before the meeting, is that visitors can be pre-registered for a meeting, or they can pre-register themselves for a meeting. This is essentially having them RSVP for a chapter meeting. And this has some very, very big benefits to it, and we'll get into that in just a few minutes. And then we have the follow-up. This happens after the meeting. So after the meeting, the visitor can either have, if they pre-registered, we can mark them as having attended the meeting. Or if they didn't pre-register, we can put them into our visitor database so that we can follow up with them. And once we do that, we'll see some various reports and the ability to email visitors. And of course, the people that invited those visitors will get credit for it in the POMS report. So let's take a look at how this happens in BNI Connect. And by the way, this flowchart here is part of a 53-page manual having to do with visitors in BNI Connect. If you would like a copy of that manual, please just send an email or input a support ticket, support@bniconnect.com, or if you go to the support site, up at the top, you'll see submit a request. That will allow you to put a ticket in, and we will gladly send off the entire manual for how to work with visitors in BNI Connect. So let's take a look. I'm going to go back over to BNI Connect, and this is obviously the screen that you'll see when you log in. Now, to get to the visitor invitation, this first piece of it, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the operations menu. If you remember from yesterday, the network will have all of your networking components, the groups, the testimonials, the picture gallery, things like that. Operations is input and tools. Reports is output only. So if we're looking to do something or create something, we're going to go to the operations menu. So if we go to operations chapter, one of the options here is create email. And this is where we're going to create our email invitation for the visitors. And it's the second option down here, email visitor invitation. What this is great for is it takes a lot of the guesswork out of inviting a visitor. So a lot of times, especially as newer members, we're not really sure how to explain BNI. We don't have the right words yet for, well, I'd like to invite somebody to my meeting, but how do you tell them what BNI is? And the trick is giving them the right amount of information without either scaring them away or without telling them things that may or may not be true about BNI. And that's why this email visitor invitation was developed, to give you a way to send a very quick email to somebody that you might have met in order to give them that information about BNI. What it does is it's going to take the information that you input here and put it into a custom template that we've developed. All you need to do is put in their name. So let's say we're going to put in Mary Smith from Smith Co. and the email address. For right now, I'm going to use my own email address so that I can receive the email right away and show you guys what it looks like. By the way, if you'd like to test this, please feel free to just put this in with your own email address so you can send one to yourself. We don't track any of this information, so we're not keeping a record of the email addresses. There's no reports or anything like that. It's just a means of being able to create this email. So feel free to try it out and test it and send one to yourself. The personal message is going to be the first paragraph. This is your introduction to that potential visitor. As I said, I like to use this as a second request. So somebody, let's say I'm out at a networking event, maybe it's a Chamber of Commerce event, and I'm networking and I meet somebody, say, hey, this is a great networking event, right? How about you come to my BNI meeting? And then I can send this invitation to them. So it was great meeting you. I would love to introduce you to my let's call it my referral team. And then I go ahead and click send. It's going to take this and it's going to wrap it up in a nice package, and it does deliver it immediately. So there's no delay or anything on that. It just sends it right out. I should get that in my email any second now, and I'll show you exactly what this looks like. And here we go. This is the email invitation that it sent out. So you can see it has a nice BNI graphic up here at the top. It then puts in, Dear Mary, it was great meeting you. I'd love to introduce you to my referral team. It then puts in the information automatically about the chapter. So it says, I happen to send the invitation for the Burr chapter in Antarctica. Lets them know that we meet in Coldville on Wednesdays at 5:30 in the afternoon. And then it briefly describes BNI. So it just uses the right words. BNI is a business and professional networking organization. It then lets them know that we're looking for somebody in their profession and to please RSVP with you. If they hit reply, this will go to your email address so that the response will go back to you as the member. And that's it. That's all there is to that email invitation. It's a very simple process, just allows you to very quickly send an email invitation with just the right words. Now, the second part of this process, and here's where I say this is possibly the most powerful part of the process, is pre-registering a visitor for a meeting. Now, the reason that this is really powerful, I'm not sure if this has ever happened to you. As I've mentioned before, I am a member of BNI. I've been a member since 2002. Once or twice, just once or twice, I've invited a visitor and they didn't show up to the meeting. Now, I'm not sure if that same thing has happened to you, but I've heard that it has happened to other people. One of the things that this pre-registration helps with is it really helps to kind of confirm, to RSVP, to make it more official that they should show up to the meeting. A lot of times when we're inviting somebody, it's more of a casual invitation. So we might be out at that networking event and we say to somebody, hey, why don't you come and meet my referral team? Great, I'd love to come to that meeting. When is it? Oh, well, it's Thursday at 7 o'clock in the morning. Make sure you bring lots of business cards. It's going to be great. You're going to meet some wonderful people. Now, to somebody that's never been to BNI before, they're pretty much thinking, oh, this is just another networking event like the one we're at right now. There's going to be a room full of 50 people. Sure, it's going to be fun, but they probably won't miss me if I'm not there. So, oh God, 30 happens and the alarm goes off and it's really dark out. They're like, you know what? I think I'm going to skip it this time. Maybe I'll go next time. And they hit the snooze button and they end up not going to the meeting. Now, those of us that have been in BNI, we know that it's a sit-down meeting. You really notice when somebody's not there, as opposed to just a networking event where everybody's anonymous. By pre-registering them, it turns it into a more formal RSVP. So what happens is when you register them, they'll get an email confirmation immediately that says, hey, by the way, you are confirmed to visit this meeting. Please be prepared to tell us about yourself. Please be prepared with business cards. Please be prepared to stay for the entire 90 minutes. The other thing it does is it notifies the leadership team and the visitor host that a visitor will be coming. So it sends an email to the president, to the vice president, to the secretary treasurer, to all of the visitor hosts, as well as to your director consultant. And it says, hey, this is great news. We have a visitor coming this week. There's some great things they can do with that announcement. They can follow up with that visitor ahead of time. They can call them. They can say, hey, by the way, we're looking forward to having you at the meeting. I noticed that you're a chiropractor. Can't wait to introduce you to the acupuncturist that's in the group. Things like that. They can even have name badges prepared for them ahead of time. So how do we do this process? Well, there's actually two different ways that a visitor can be pre-registered. So let me go back to BNI Connect here. Now I'm still under this operations chapter. So I'm still under operations chapter. And all the way up at the top here is manage visitors. Now, most of you will only see one option here, and that is register a prospective visitor. Register a prospective visitor before a meeting. And this will, again, register that visitor and we'll start that whole email process. All we need to do is fill out the form. So we have the chapter and the region and the country and everything. We have the profession, so we're just going to choose what profession they're in. Let's say that we're bringing an appraiser, a real estate appraiser in. We then choose what date they're going to be visiting. Now you'll notice that I can only choose future dates. I can't choose last week's meeting or the meeting before. That's how you know you're in the right place, by the way, because you can only choose future meetings. And then we put in the person's name. So this was Mary Smith from Smith Co. And the more information you have, the better. So if you have their address and all this other information, 1 Here Street in Thereville, Rhode Island, and the zip code, and the phone number. Phone number is mandatory, as well as email address. And just like before, what I'm going to do is use my own email address here so that you guys can see that I get a confirmation message and what that looks like. So once I hit submit, again, this confirmation message is going to go out saying, hey, Mary Smith, congratulations. You have successfully registered. Here it is now. Hi, Mary, you're confirmed to visit the BNI Burr chapter. You're confirmed on this day at this time. So it's not a generic meeting. You are invited to this particular meeting. Bring plenty of business cards. You'll meet lots of local business professionals. Now, each region may have slightly different wording in here, but the fact remains that they are being confirmed. And additionally, as I said, the leadership team, so one of the people on my leadership team, Alfred, We're letting you know that Mary Smith is confirmed. Please be prepared to welcome Mary. And remember that visitors can become members. So again, that all happens automatically. Now, 2 days before the meeting, Mary Smith will be reminded about the meeting. So even if they registered for a meeting 2 or 3 weeks out, they will be reminded saying, just a reminder, you're scheduled to visit this particular meeting. Now, I did mention that there's another way that you can register to visit a meeting, and the visitors can actually do this themselves if they'd like to. That's done through the regional websites. Now, you can get to your regional website. I don't know if you don't know what it is, just click this regional website button in the upper right-hand corner, and that will take you to your regional website. So I happen to be a member in the Rhode Island region. So this brought me to bniri.com, bnirhodeisland.com. Obviously, if you do that button, it'll bring you to your regional website. Now, on every regional website, we have the ability to find chapters, and we can see, and there's actually people that use the site just for finding a chapter that they might want to visit because they heard about BNI. They can see what day the meetings are and the time and everything like that. Say, hey, let's check out the BNI Wakefield chapter here. They meet on Thursdays at 7 a.m. We can take a look through their membership, look at any of the profiles and say, you know what, I do want to visit this chapter, and they could click this Visit This Chapter button. This form is almost an identical form to the one that we fill out on the members only portion of BNI Connect. The only real difference is that they do need to type in who invited them, and they also have to put a CAPTCHA code in. The CAPTCHA code is just to make sure that they're not a robot crawling through websites and putting in fake data. So this form is also available. Every chapter has a website, and on the chapter website there is a link, Visit This Chapter, that allows you, again, same exact form, different CAPTCHA code obviously, but it starts the entire process of registering them for the meeting. Now, once somebody's registered, aside from just having the notifications, there's also a great report that's available. So if we take a look at the reports in BNI Connect and go over to the chapter level reports, there's a report here that shows you all of the people that are registered for the upcoming meeting. So it is all the way down at the bottom, so you do have to scroll a little bit. There's a whole bunch of chapter reports, but down at the bottom, the visitor registration report. By default, it's going to show me the next 7 days. And if I click go, this should show me my next meeting, and we can see here that Mary Smith is registered to come to the meeting on November 8th. It also lets me know their profession and their specialty, as well as who invited them to the meeting. Now, this is especially helpful if you happen to be doing something like a visitor's day or maybe a stack day, to have visitors register for that meeting so that you can have a list of all their information. And what's great is you can use this even as the sign-in sheet, as opposed to making everybody physically sign in and then having to go back and enter that data into BNI Connect. So that's the registration process. So we have the two things that happen before the meeting. So we have that inviting visitors, we can send them the email invitation, and then we have the registration process. Now, again, the things we can do with that report, we can send out emails, we can pre-invite or pre-welcome visitors to the meeting so that they feel welcome before they ever walk through the door. Now the meeting happens and the visitors show up to the meeting. There's a couple of things that then happen after the meeting. Now, for these functions, you may need to be a visitor host or somebody on the leadership team, such as the secretary treasurer or the vice president. But what we want to make sure that we do is, after the meeting, we want to mark the visitors as having attended, the ones that pre-registered. If they showed up to the meeting, we want to make sure that we mark them as having showed up. And if they didn't pre-register, we want to make sure that we add them to our visitor database. And the reason that we want to do that is to really, this is a database. It's a marketing database for our chapter. We can always go back to visitors and either re-invite them to the meeting, Or even if we know that they're never going to join, or maybe they're in conflict or whatever else it might be, maybe we want to invite them to our Christmas party that we're having, or some other networking events that we're having, or even just to know that they visited 2 or 3 or 4 times. So that part of the process, let's go back to BNI Connect again. And if we go back to operations, under manage visitors, again, you have to be a visitor host or somebody with permissions to do this. But what you can see here is manage registered visitors and mark attendance. And what we can do here is essentially we're looking at the registered visitors database. I can choose a start date and a start time, or just a name if I'd like to search this, or I can just click go and get everybody. So it looks like we've had about 40 registrations over the years to this Burr chapter in Antarctica. I can sort this by visit date here, and let's take a look. We have the Mary Smith that is registered to visit on the 18th. Now, if she needs to change her registration, for example, or remove the registration, I can always delete this. I could also edit it. And let's say Mary calls, because one thing that happens, and that's really helpful, is that, remember, when they get that reminder 3 days before, they say, oh, you know what, something's come up, I can't make that day. Do you mind if I reschedule for another week? Absolutely. I can go into this record and I can change it from the 18th into the 25th instead. And this will send out a new email confirmation letting her know that she's registered for that meeting instead of the one on the 18th. But after the meeting's happened, what we do also want to do is, let's say Brian Smith, let's say we're going through and he did show up on that meeting. So if I go in to edit this, one of the things that you'll see here, and this makes the visitor host job much easier, by the way, when they've pre-registered, now we have the option to just say, yes, this visitor attended. So I can check that off instead of having to type in all the information all over again. I do have the option to then choose whether or not we're adding them to the POMs. In other words, is the person that invited them, do they get credit for the invitation? Now, there's reasons why you may not want to. And one of those reasons is that if you're utilizing chapter traffic lights in your area, one of the things is the conversion ratio. And the conversion ratio is simply number of visitors in the POMS report versus number of new members, and it gives you a fraction. So if you're putting the same person in, let's say the same person visited 2, 3, 4 times, you're putting them in 4 times, you're actually lowering your conversion ratio by putting them in all of those times. So you can choose to put them in and not put them into the POMs if you'd like to. You need to verify who invited them. Confirm the visit date. You can change this at this point if you need to. Verify the details, and again, this is all typed out because the visitor pre-registered. And finally, you can choose whether or not to send them a follow-up email and confirm their email address. And sometimes you may not want to send the follow-up email. Maybe they're already a member of another chapter and you're just putting them in as a guest of the chapter, and they don't really need the email saying, thanks for visiting, would you like to join? Because they're already a member. So you can choose to suppress that email if you'd like to. So when I click submit, you can see that Brian Smith was removed from the list. Brian also got an email saying, hey, thank you so much for recently visiting, some of the benefits of joining. And they've now moved out of the registered visitors list and into our visitor database for our chapter. Now, if the person that you wanted is not here, they did not pre-register, we also have this button, Add Visitor. And this is essentially just inputting all of that information from scratch if they hadn't pre-registered. Clicking this Add Visitor, by the way, is the same as clicking Record a Visitor here, post-meeting, not pre-registered. Both of those will take you to the same place. Now, once we've started developing our visitor database, we have a couple of options that are available to us. One of those things is that we can use this create email function for email chapter visitors. This allows us to, let's say we wanted to, for example, we're going to be having a Christmas party at the Burr chapter. We want to invite everybody that visited the chapter this year to come and join us for our Christmas networking get-together. So I can go and I can do a search for everybody that's visited since January 1st, and this will give me an email address, an email list of people that have visited. We also have the ability for reports. So if I go to the chapter level reports, I will now have a visitor database. So we can take a look and look at the chapter visitor report, for example, right here, chapter visitor report. Put in a date range. Again, let's take a look at all the visitors from January through today, and we're going to be inviting them all to the Christmas party. Now let's say that we want to make sure that we're going to be sending them a send out cards invitation. When I export this, you'll notice there's further information when exporting this report. So I can export this. I choose to export without headers. I don't need all this stuff at the top, just this stuff at the bottom, which would be our export without headers. And now I have their full address, as well as their email address, what date they visited, and their profession, and all of this other great information that I can send them out invitations to come and visit us. All right, and that, my friends, is the visitor process here in BNI Connect. So we started out with inviting visitors, then we pre-registered our visitors, then we had our meeting, and then we followed up with our visitors afterwards. So what I'd like to do now is we are at the bottom of the hour. What I'd like to do is to open this up to questions. Does anybody have any questions at all about the visitor process in BNI Connect? Be happy to answer those questions now. All right, while you're thinking of any last minute questions, just a couple of reminders. This is being recorded. If you would like to see the recordings, best thing to do is click on this question mark here in the upper right-hand corner of BNI Connect. That will take you over to the support site, and on the support site, you'll see our list of upcoming webinars. By the way, a good referral for me is if you got some value out of this, we will be rerunning this entire series live in December. So please let your other chapter members know about these and ask them to please sign up for any of them. They're all within the first couple of weeks of December. And then we also have a leadership team series coming up to the end of this month. You can also see right here the recorded webinars series. This will be uploaded shortly. You can also view any of the ones that happened in October. You can view them right here, or you can view them on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. We have a ton of videos available up here, not just our recorded webinars, but things like education moments and other videos about BNI Connect. All right, so we do have another question. A couple of questions are popping up. So Lisa asks, how can I visit another BNI? Now, the easiest way to visit another BNI is to go and see the other chapters that you're looking to visit. Now, to do that, I recommend utilizing your regional website if you're going to be visiting a chapter in your direct area. Just click on Regional Website and click on Find a Chapter. If you have a specific day that you'd like to look for example, I know that I'd like to visit a chapter on a Tuesday. I can click Find and see all of my chapters that meet on Tuesday and what time they meet, and pick a chapter to go visit. Let's say the Moneymakers chapter, I'd like to go visit a lunch group, for example, and I can see their membership. I do recommend, especially as a fellow BNI member, I recommend getting in touch with somebody on their leadership team. So for example, sending a message or giving Rick a call saying, hey, I was thinking about visiting your chapter. Especially as another member, you want to find out By the way, does cellos, is there a lunch fee or something that I need to be prepared to pay? Things like that. A lot of regions also have a chapter map. So in our region, we have a visit a chapter function that has a chapter map of all the chapters within the region. So I can go through and look at a chapter based on area that way as well. That varies a little bit by region. Now, let's say you're looking for a chapter in another area, not just your area. If you're here in the United States, most countries have a website as well. So in the United States, it's bniamerica.com. And of course, we can go to find a chapter here and do the same type of search. Or we also have the USA map of chapters where we can drill into various areas. Let's say Kentucky. And here's one in Bowling Green, the dollars and cents chapter. So again, that's another opportunity for you to take a look at various chapters, various areas of chapters that you'd like to visit. Same goes true for other countries, by the way. Lisa, does that answer your question? All right, let's see. Don says, please elaborate on a visitor rescheduling. We can make that change online. They paid for dinner lunch. It's just applied to the new date. Don, a couple of things about that. We don't collect fees for the meeting. So even if they come and they schedule, let's say I go to this chapter here and I click on visit this chapter, there's no way to pay for a meeting through this particular interface. So any meeting fees are going to be handled separately no matter what. So that part of it you kind of don't have to worry about from this standpoint, at least from BNI Connect. As far as rescheduling, I mean that you can just change the date online and they'll be scheduled for that other meeting. Does that make sense, Don? Does that help? Judy says, tell me again, do I as the member enter the visitor invite and pre-register the visitor? So Judy, yes. So as you're the one that's going to be doing the invitation, that is a member tool that allows you to invite somebody. It's going to be signed from you. It's going to come from your email address. So yes, that's something that you do. As far as pre-registering, yes, again, that's something that you can do as a member, and I encourage you to do so. Or if you'd like to, you can encourage the visitor to register themselves. So you can go ahead and, you can send them a link to that page if you'd like to, or to invite them to register themselves. But traditionally, me as a member, I'm going to register my visitor on their behalf. So does that help, Judy? Right, Don makes the comment, we can pay for our meals online. If you are using a third-party registration system, a lot of people use something like Eventbrite or something like that, or another payment gateway in order to process that. Absolutely, there are other ways to collect it. It's just it's unofficial, let's say, a third-party application to it as opposed to directly through BNI Connect. But thank you for that, Don. All right, any other questions? I love questions. All right, if there's no additional questions, thank you guys so much for being here, and especially I see a number of names on the list that have been here through the entire series or through many of the webinars of the entire series. Thank you guys so much for coming to all of these webinars. I greatly appreciate it. I hope you found some value in it. If you have any questions whatsoever, please do feel free to email support@bniconnect.com. We're happy to help in any way that we can. I look forward to seeing you on a future webinar, and happy connecting.